Welcome to a super special episode of Single Track. I'm sitting down with Maggie Guterl and Staci Revel, who just completed the inaugural Cocodona 250 down in Arizona. Probably the newest, most badass race in North America. Sleepless nights, brutal heat, endless rocky trails. We hear from those two as they stay up for 3, 4, 5 nights and run halfway through Arizona, all the way through Arizona. Who knows how big Arizona is? Cocodona 250 is long. The longest race in North America, I suppose. What makes this episode so special is that I don't have to talk a lot. Maggie and Staci towed the line together and have lots of stories to share as they talk about how to deal with the night, the wildlife, the feet issues. Yes, we're talking about feet again, as you might expect. And all of the other insane challenges that a huge race like that throws at you. My hat's off to these two badass women for completing the race. Thank you for coming on the show. And now, after a few short messages, we'll get on with it. Doug is sadly not going to be able to be with us today. He is out, second vaccine shot, knocked him out for the day. No big deal. He'll be back soon. Hey guys, get your vaccines so we can open back up. Being out cold for a day or two is totally worth it. Getting our country, our world back to normal. First off, I want to talk to you about a product called My Medic. It's a first aid kit. One like you've never seen before. First aid kits is something that you'll need with you. Sometimes on the run, something small and tiny, just to take care of a couple blisters or something. Something bigger you might keep in your car or at an aid station. And the MyFAK, F-A-K, first aid kit, is an aid station first aid kit that you can keep wherever you need it and wherever you hopefully never will need it. My Medic sent me one of those, and it is stuffed and loaded with everything you could possibly want and pretty much everything that you don't think about and hopefully will never need, but is super useful to keep you well alive. Go check out mymedic.com. Check out their selection of incredible first aid kits. And if you place an order and use the coupon code SingleTrack20, you will save 20% off your order. Coupon code SingleTrack20. Thank you, MyMedic, for sponsoring this week's episode of Single Track. A couple of weeks ago, we had Roberto on the show, who is working for Jack Wolfskin, and we went through great lengths telling you how much I love Jack Wolfskin growing up and how this company has been a huge influence in the outdoor world in Europe and is now finally coming to the US. Well, they've sent me a couple of their newest pieces, things that you can actually buy over here right now, not things that I still have sitting in my closet. And I've been taking for the test drive. And as you might guess, of course, I'm hugely biased. I love Jack Wolfskin, but you gotta check out their stuff. They sent me the JWP mid layer. It's a zip jacket. It's a lightweight fleece jacket that looks very European in style. It's slick and it's light and it's absolutely incredible to wear. You can wear it around the house. You can wear it out to the trails. You can wear it to the grocery store or even to work. This just looks like a really cool and fun, breathable jacket. And just like with all of the Jack Wolfskin products, you gotta check out and read up on the materials. So much is made out of recycled material and traceable sourcing, and you can check the factories of where this stuff made. And if you then look at the prices, then you would sort of lose your mind because their stuff is so good, kind of too good to be true. They also sent me that Cross Trail t-shirt, an athletic t-shirt that, again, doesn't feel plasticky at all. It feels like a super nice, breathable, lightweight shirt that is just great to wear while out running or going on a long walk to the farmer's market on a warm day. Go check out Jack Wolfskin. That's jackwolfskin.com. And if you go to us.jackwolfskin.com, you immediately go to their US site. Check out their line of products. They have packs, backpacks, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Super cool stuff that's totally worth checking out, especially for these incredible prices. Thank you, Jack Wolfskin, for sponsoring the show. And now, finally, people, we're going to hear from Maggie and Staci about their incredible race at the Cocodona 250. This is probably one of the most exciting podcasts I've ever recorded because I've got two guests with me on the show. I've got Maggie Guterl and Staci Revel here. Both just completed Cocodona 250. Congratulations to an absolute incredible race, both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So what's awesome is, for our guests, Maggie has been on the show before. So you're old news, but you came in first, so mega congratulations to you. Staci is actually here from the Pacific Northwest, from the Olympia area. And Staci, we've ran a couple races together, and you ran LBA Little Backyard Adventure in its inaugural form in 2019. So that was like perfect training ground for Cocodona.
Sure. Yeah, that put me right on the fast track to Cocodona.
So
I think that was, 19 miles?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is like perfect training ground. So how do we let's start with Staci. So, especially since people don't know that much about you, what makes you want to run 250 miles? That is like insane.
I think it's because I am insane. I don't know. I was never a runner. I used to think that running was not my thing. I was like, why would I want to do that? And, it all started, long story short, I worked with a gal back in December of 2016. She was like, hey, you want to go run the roads at lunch? And I was like, why? Where? She's like, just the roads. So she got me out running. And then she talked me into signing up for a half marathon. And I thought that'd be my be-all, end-all. But it just kind of blew up from there. So somehow I ran into this pack of amazing, inspirational ladies. And we run together all the time. And we just inspire each other. And we had this crazy idea to sign up for Cocodona. And my very good friend Phyllis is from Arizona. She grew up on the Navajo reservation. And so it's kind of her home stomping grounds. And we decided to go for it. But it was definitely outside of anything I'd ever done.
Well, it's outside of pretty much any distance that outside of backyard ultras, Maggie. This is the longest distance of a race here in the US. I mean, unless we're talking like weird stage races or something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know a longer one because, Moab 240 was pretty much it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, for you, Maggie, 250 is something that you've sort of already experienced at the Backyard Ultra, and so therefore nobody is surprised that you signed up for it. What fascinated you to try to do this, especially since it's a brand new race on brand new routes?
Yeah, that's part of the curiosity that was the inaugural year. And it's a race that it's long, obviously, but like a lot of the races I sign up for, you don't get what you kind of signed up for because you don't make it that far. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I can make it to the finish. And I know when the start is, I know what time it starts, and I just have to get 250 miles or whatever it ended up being, to Flagstaff. And it sounded like it would be a really good experience to learn what it's like to get to a third night. Cause, when I first looked at the course, I was talking to Jamil and I thought maybe 60 hours was possible. And then the more I learned about it, I was like, I think under 3 days would be a really good goal. And Michael Versteeg, the guy that won, did it in over 72 hours. So, that's, kind of how hard it ended up being. So I don't know. I just wanted to see what it was like to just go farther and longer, almost like as a guarantee.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's the other thing, right? Because it's inaugural one, nobody knew how long it would actually take. I remember watching the live coverage just before you came into the finish, and people were talking about how they didn't had plans to do that many hours of live coverage because they assumed by now a lot more runners would be in the finish, but they just had to keep going because they were waiting for you and a few more.
Yeah, I heard about that. It's very nice of them. But yeah, that they had to buy like extra streaming time on YouTube or something. Cause
oh, exactly.
Originally they were just gonna stream until like Wednesday night or something. Okay. I'm not sure. Yeah, and I guess we all, people started finishing on Thursday morning.
It's not so now that we have some hours, right? I think there will be sort of a little bit of a different calculation, but you went into this blind. Staci, you took 118 hours and 28 minutes. That is 5 days. That is insane.
I spent more than 6 hours with my silly feet just trying to. How do you handle that, Maggie?
Staci talked to me beforehand and said, "You know what? I'm so looking forward to talking to Maggie because I've had so many feet problems. I want to know how to handle it."
You just said you went from like running your first run in half marathon to 5 years later.
Yeah.
Just doing this, that's insane. And so what I learned is like your body just like eventually figures it out. But yeah, and I still feel new to this, but it's been 10 years since my first ultra, and I think eventually your feet just figure it out, and like certain things you just figure it out. Maybe they toughen up and they look grosser and they're more calloused and you get less like feet issues, but I mean, it was hard because it was really hot. So, I mean, I remember my feet being really hot all the time. Did you change your socks frequently and like use a lube and stuff?
I did. I think what happened, like I started in a pair of shoes that were like more fitted than I should have. And so my feet were swelling up from the crazy heat. Like here in the great Pacific Northwest, I mean, we get like rain, and I trained in like 61-degree rain, so it was a little bit of a system shock going down there. But it's like my feet got so raw that even by Crown King, I was starting to get blisters on the bottom, and that was only mile 31 or something. And then I felt like the more I messed with them, the worse it was getting too as the race progressed. Like by Sedona, I could hardly walk because they were so swollen. I had 4 pairs of shoes and I could only fit them into one pair. And it took 2 of us. It took a person like holding the shoe and me forcing my foot into it. We were like making Drizella references, like Cinderella. I mean, it was terrible, but it was, I think like looking at it just from what I feel anyway, I think I should have had bigger shoes to start with. In the heat, but I don't have any heat experience at all. So that was my big system shock.
Yeah, I had, I wear like the Ultra Olympus that are kind of bigger on my feet anyway, and they're hard to get like really tight. And so I wore those, but I feel like part of the really rocky parts, my feet were like rolling around in them, so I got like side blister heels, like on the side of my heels. So yeah, I mean, it's like hard to find the perfect combination. I mean, you're gonna have probably foot troubles no matter what at this distance, I would guess.
Yeah, I would think so. It was just it came on so early. I mean, I've done a couple like 100-milers and never had any foot problems at all. I considered myself like super lucky. But I was like, wow, my feet are pretty sturdy. And then this one just kicked me.
Yeah, I think heat's just tough.
Yeah, and the sand and the heat maybe, and the sweaty swelling. Yeah. I felt like toe socks helped, though. I was wearing like little toe socks
Oh yeah.
that kind of reduced some of the friction, but it was just a crazy, my feet were not happy.
So
But
you said
everything
you
else felt
had,
good.
so you said your feet also swelled.
Yes.
So it wasn't just the blisters. But no, I'm telling you, feet is a very important conversation here on this podcast. We are constantly making fun of my feet issues. That's what did me in at Zion. I couldn't keep going after puny 70 miles because of feet issues, and like I'm blistered out always, constantly. So hearing that you guys have issues with that, and yeah, to what Maggie says, yeah, the feet eventually just figure it out and you just have to tough it up. So that's nuts.
Yeah, I guess there's a whole book about foot care. I was gonna like look into checking out that book, but I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if
I have it. He's one of the guys who helps out at Western States. Usually, is at Forest Hill trying to fix people up. I've skimmed it for it's very extensive on everything. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some good tips in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's called How to Fix Your Feet.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Since you're going into such level of detail, Maggie, how many pairs of shoes did you run with?
I had 2 pairs of like Ultra Lone Peaks that I think I should have just switched out of those sooner because the rocks are just really destroying my feet.
Mm-hmm.
But I had like a pair that's like much tighter just because like, oh yeah, I have a pair that's size 10 for when they swell. But like even when I put on the size 10s, I felt like my feet were sliding around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So then I just finally switched to the Olympus, which I think was a good shoe for this because, I mean, you feel more clumsy, but like you're moving so slow, it doesn't really matter. And just all the rocks and stuff, like I think those helped a lot. I also feel like it helped maybe cushion, kind of help the heat because the ground's hot maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and like I don't know, my feet are now. I have this big cushion between it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know if that's like a thing, but it seemed like it helped.
I love it. Talking about the technicality of the trail, let's speak a little bit for our listeners. How much of the trail was technical and how much of it was runnable? I think the first section, from what I'm hearing, was super hard, right? Didn't you say that it was one of the toughest 100Ks that you've run to start off?
Yeah. I mean, so you do it's around 10 miles to the first aid station on like the Black Canyon Trail. It's pretty cruisy. And I think like we were running a little fast, but I think everyone knew that it was going to get really hard. So like, we ran about 100 feet per mile for 10 miles. I think I had 1,000 feet when I got to the aid station. And I knew we had like 8,000 feet more to go. And so like, yeah, I think that section has like I had like 23 miles on that section. But I didn't have my watch on the most accurate setting. So I don't know, let's call it like 22 or something, with 8,000 feet. And, at first the inclines weren't super hard, but they got steeper and they're just like really rocky and, like steep but sandy, so you wouldn't get like a lot of traction. So you could just like power up. So and then just on top of it, it felt like you were dying because it was like 100 degrees, it felt like. Mm-hmm. And then I think I don't know I'm curious to hear how Sarah did in this section, but I ran out of water like 2.5. I took the prescribed 3 liters of liquids. I just took all Tailwind. But I think I was out for 2.5 hours before I got to the aid station. So
oh, wow.
I was pretty thirsty by the time I got there.
Yeah, Staci, why don't you talk about these first few sections? Which is like crazy. I'm talking about the first few sections. That's 100K.
I think I called you Sarah by accident.
That's okay.
A document that says Sarah, and I just called you. Sorry, Stacy.
Totally fine. No, I had the same experience. I felt like in the first 11 miles, it's like I was trying to pipe down. I didn't want to go really fast, but at the same time, I kind of wanted to go fast because we were trying to race the heat. I started at 5:40, like a little bit later, and then, trying to pace yourself so that you're not overdoing it, but then knowing that big climb is coming. And they recommended like 3 liters of water at the first aid station. So I filled up 3, and then I had like a little 12-ounce bottle, but my Camelback was the 3 liters. So when you're out in the heat using it, I didn't ration my water very well because I was drinking out of the thing on my back. And the next thing I knew, I worked it dry, and I still had like 7 more miles to go. So I just had that little 12-ounce thing for the last 7 miles, and it was rough. People were laying down next to the trail. People were, taking a seat and trying to stay in the shade. There was a guy down at the milk ranch that he was throwing up like really bad, and I was trying to get him to get out of the sun because he was sitting in the sun, and he was saying he was going to wait till sunset to try to move, and he couldn't drink anything. And I was like, you've got to get out of the
sunset.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. And I couldn't reason with the guy. Like the aid station people ended up going and collecting him, luckily, because I kind of checked up on him. I was really worried. Like, this guy was so out of it.
I think they collected a few people.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long stretch with that climb, not having any water. And I just kind of had the mindset, like, I'm going to keep moving even though I'm out of water, because every moment that you're out there is more time in the sun without water. So it was like, but then getting to that aid station was awesome. Everybody there was really lively, and it was that aid station was cool. And I was so happy. They had watermelon, and that just hit the spot. It was very exciting.
Watermelon is one of the most. Yeah, I can imagine. Watermelon is one of the most important parts.
Oh yeah, I had some salted watermelon when I got there too.
Nice.
I think Howie Stern was in his element there. He was just loving the carnage he was capturing with his camera.
Oh man, it was rough.
Yeah.
And it was like you could watch optimism going away. I mean, people that were like gung-ho at the beginning of that, it was painful, watching people. Yeah.
I think it's hard for people to recover from that too, because I think because you leave Crown King on a real runnable bunch of roads, and there's climbing, but then there's an excuse to like hike a bit. But depending on the time of the day, it was still pretty hot. And then you reach this, like, you turn off and you hit that trail, and you're like, okay, cool, a single track. And then it turns into like, is this even a trail? And it's like just loose, sharp rocks, and you're like kind of in this narrow, overgrown trail going up and down like relentlessly.
With the cow fences, the evil cow fence. I could not handle those things.
I climbed over the first one. I was like, this isn't a gate. And then I realized later how the gates worked, but and I was still able to climb over barbed wire at that point. But later, I'm glad I figured out the cow fence.
They were hard to open and close.
Yeah,
like,
they were really.
Video, but.
Like I think the other Camp Kippa, I think was another carnage aid station, just because I think people where I was like didn't think they would be out when it was still cold and dark. Mm-hmm. And so I was wearing like a cotton t-shirt still, and I didn't bring a jacket, and it was like freezing. So yeah, I mean, it was just like every section was just unexpected, and finally you're like, okay, bring more water than you think and more clothes than you think.
Yeah.
Yes. When it was like right before sunrise, it got the coldest. Mm-hmm. Like all night I felt really good, and then right before the sun came up, I was like, oh, it's brisk. Wow.
Yeah.
Just crazy temperatures.
And I mean, it was really cold when we got up on that plateau, like on, I think, night 3 in the morning, or going into night day 4. It was probably the coldest. I think I left that aid station wearing a puffy jacket.
Oh, yeah. The very last one, I had a puffy jacket, and then you come down and it gets warm. It was just a weird feeling, like go from freezing. We had like 40-mile-an-hour winds when I was on Eldon.
Oh, wow.
I know. Well, I was there at night. I was a lot slower, but then coming down it got so warm, and I was too lazy to like strip layers again. I was like, I'm almost there, but man, it got hot. It was a weird dynamic.
Yeah, it's a big difference from 2,000 feet, especially like because Flagstaff's similar to Durango weather, so like, you know, just 1,000 or 2 higher is like could be like 20 degrees colder and windy.
Yeah, Maggie, for you, this environment was a little bit more familiar, right? But Staci, you mentioned it earlier. You train in the Pacific Northwest, right? And our trails are cushy and muddy, and you've got tree cover and certainly no heat. And if it's hot and it's humid and not so dry, right? I mean, it's really difficult to prepare and to train for something like that, especially early in the year, right? I mean, if a race happens in like September or so, then I think our summers give your body a little bit of the ability to acclimate to something like that.
Yeah, it was just totally different. I mean, I knew obviously it was going to be hot, but wow, it was this lady that I met, because you meet so many neat people out there when you're in like the mid pack like me, you get to actually like meet people and hang out. But every time I'd be alone for a really long time, and then I'd meet somebody, and every time they were just the neatest people. But there was a gal I met from Michigan, and she bought like one of those saunas that she put in her great room just to train in. So she would go in her sauna every night for like half an hour, just to like prepare herself for going to Arizona.
Oh, she was doing special heat training?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. She had the entire race memorized, because she would sit in there and like read the race information. I mean, it was cool. She knew like every detail. But it was different. I was like, that's actually a really good idea, because I think her sauna was like $1,500 or something. So that's good training.
Yeah.
Plus, nice to have.
Yeah, that is good, especially since like all the saunas are kind of. I mean, I don't think ours are open here. I'm sure they will be soon, but like
the public ones, exactly.
Yeah, I've done sauna training before in the past for stuff, and like, I mean, I guess it helps, but there's also like you can just do heat management on race day and hope that works. But like, yeah, I did the cotton shirt thing with like, and I grabbed ice bandana at the first, like I brought it and I just filled it up with ice and had that just kind of dripping on me like for the first climb. And so I wonder if that's like, I mean, I was thirsty and ran out, but I never felt super, super, super hot. Whereas like, yeah, some of the guys they passed are like just kind of dying and like laying on the trail and in shade. And I was like in the same thinking that Staci had, where it's like, just keep moving. Cause like it's just get out of the heat if you can just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting or something.
Staci, you mentioned that one of the runners you ran with had the trail fully memorized and knew what was coming. How do you guys go about this? Because usually I try to prepare myself really well, and then for Zion, I chose to go in blind, which wasn't a smart idea, and I won't do this again. But how much are you aware what each section holds? I mean, obviously it's a new race, so you couldn't watch endless videos about it, but how much are you sort of, trying to prepare yourself for each section?
I was underprepared. I think my whole motto of this whole thing was undertrain and underprepare.
Well, it worked for you, so good on you.
That's my training plan. But it was So one of the gals that I traveled with, she's a good friend of mine, Angela, she had actually printed all the race information and she made a booklet and put tabs in it and highlighted stuff. But I, of course, didn't like take the time and really read through it. But Tim, our friend, he was kind of crewing 3 of us, which is amazing for one person to crew 3 people. My hat's off to him. But he was awesome. He was awesome at it. But he would like give us a quick overview from the book with the elevation, kind of what to expect. But I was so out of it at that point that I was just like, how many miles? Okay, whatever. But he'd meet us about every 30 miles or so, on the major aid stations. And he was so dialed in. He was also the person that helped me get my stupid shoes on. Mm-hmm. So it was neat. But yeah, I wasn't fully prepared. I bet, Maggie, you probably reviewed it better than I did.
I mean, I looked just to kind of see, where we would be and try to guess what time of day I'd be there. And I was totally off by like 12 hours and everything. So, just to like prepare, I was lucky. I had an awesome crew. 2 of our Tailwind Trailblazers, our ambassador team, Amy and David, they live in a van part-time and they said they would help, which is great, having somebody who has their own little home with them. Yeah. And then I had another Tailwind athlete, Kyle Curtin, who's a local Durango guy, and he's done, he's won the Tahoe 200. One of the few people who can say he ran past Courtney DeWalter in mile 180.
Oh, yes.
actually beat her. He said she's beat him plenty of times before, but yeah, so he was a huge help. And then I had a ton of pacers that would kind of know each section and just kind of know what's coming. And so because I like to know, what Staci said, I don't know how much I remembered at a point, but I didn't have it memorized. So yeah, each time Amy would tell me okay, this is a climb and you'll be up at 7,400 feet, and then it's this many miles, and we'll see you here. And they ended up going to more aid stations than I had mapped out. And towards the end, they're like, "No, we'll go to the next one that we can go to," which is, I was afraid they weren't going to get enough rest, but it was really sweet because, normally you think, okay, well, it's a 14-mile section and a 14-mile section. I can see you in 32 miles, but 14 hours is taking 5 hours or 6 hours to get there. Yeah. Oh, so, they're just there and waiting, and it was, they changed up the plan if we needed to, which is great. So, yeah, it's hard to memorize. I mean, it's hard to just really know what's coming because they didn't really know. Also, I think there were certain sections, depending on where you hit them, that would be brutal. Do you remember the section Lime Kiln that was mostly sandy trails? I think as you get into Sedona.
Oh, yes.
Well, did you hit that in the day or the night?
I was coming out of Sedona early morning, as the sun was rising. Which was
north of Sedona, or this was south before you get.
Oh, yeah.
This trail is called Lime Kiln.
That's right. I was there in the night.
Okay. I think we were lucky, supposedly, because there was a local guy, Drew Fries, he was with us around then, and he said, this is a sauna in the daytime. And I think that, so Pam Reed, you guys know that name. She ran Cocodona. She's a legend. She's won Badwater, won Badwater. She told her pacer, Elaine, that part was hotter than Badwater has ever felt. So I think that was a pretty brutal part if you're in the sun in the day.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how far. I was in the sun through tons of those sections up high on the plateau. Before then, God, it's kind of like a blur now. But
yeah, this is before the plateau, I think.
Oh, and then that section.
Before you get into Sedona and before you get to the airport loop, but there's this sandy network of trails. And I don't know, it was so dark and all I saw was just grass and sand.
Oh wait, I was in some of that in the heat. But it was post 3:00, so it wasn't the highest part, but prior to that, there was a section that was terrible. And then it was so miserably hot up high before it dropped down. I do remember that, just that feeling of endless heat because there's just exposure. I mean, there's no way out of it.
There's barely any shade the entire race. I don't think.
I know. And when we were in that section before you cross the river and you go through, what's that little town called?
Jerome.
Oh yeah, Jerome, and then the town below it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It was like 1,000 degrees in that town, and there was a tree along the sidewalk that I just stood under, and I was like, I don't want to keep going.
It's like, this one tree on the whole trail. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah, it was like this shade, and then this lady from the town came over, and she was just like, oh my goodness, a lady in the race, and she was like, keep going, and it was neat. There were some really encouraging people along the way, and it was kind of cool to just have some of the locals come out and root for you.
Yeah,
I didn't get that feeling in Jerome necessarily, but
we got there around before sunset, and there was actually, with all the rules in Jerome, didn't know what to expect, but all the people seemed pretty nice. It was definitely very quiet, but like this one lady was on horseback, and she recognized my pacer, Nicole, from the live feed. She's like, I've been watching, I recognize you in your shoes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and they seemed pretty psyched, and we ran past a couple, like a restaurant, and they were like, are you in the race? Oh, good job.
Wow.
Which, yeah, I wasn't sure, because like they just had such strict rules not to say or anything, and don't just do anything. Just go to the aid station. So I was trying to keep my head down and just like not bother anyone, and they were like, yay, and I was like, oh, like, don't get me in trouble.
I know. I was like, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go straight to the state park.
I think a couple times I like put my poles on the ground and they were clicking, and you weren't supposed to do that. And I was like, I'm so tired. I need them. But I was like, I picked them up, and I was like, because you run up like this steep hill. You run all the way down that annoying hill, and then you're like, have to go all the way back up to the little state park. But it was a really cool town.
After you leave the state park and then you go down that power line washout thing, and there's like broken glass.
Yeah, it's everywhere. We saw a rattlesnake right as we got onto that trail. And it was like, night, and we were like, oh God. And it's like rattlesnakes and glass and overgrown. And I was like, oh, where are we?
Oh, I kept slipping on it. It was like a bad washout.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I almost fell. It was those like catch yourself.
Oh my God.
Just the rocks just go under you. And then that trip to the river, like from there, I was in the hottest part of the day there. And it was just, it felt like it would never end.
Yeah. I think a lot of parts felt like that.
I know. There's some races like that go by fast, and this didn't feel like it when you were in it.
There's a couple. So after you do the Kasner mountain climb, well, there's like this section where it was during the day, and all these ATVs were driving by, and they speed up when they see you, which sucks because it creates so much dust. But they were the largest group of just jerky ATV people that I've ever come across. Because usually, like, I don't know, here it's just they're kind of nice. Like, you know, they know that you're either biking or hiking or running or something. But these people, they'd see you and they would just speed up, and you're just like, ugh. So it was like inhaling so much dust, and it was so hot. And then you do the Kasner climb, you know, that big power line that was like super steep.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I got to that. Then you're up on the plateau, kind of, you're just like rolling, and then you hit Turkey Butte, that aid station, and it's pretty flat from there. And there's all these dirt roads. I think you're in dirt roads for a long time, and I was really grateful to hit all that at the night when you couldn't really see, but I just felt like it was endless. Just endless dirt roads.
From Turkey Butte, I was thinking it was like 7 miles to the next aid station, and I was planning on like a quick little nap there. And I found out it was closer to 10, and that was just like a kick in the gut because it was this long, never-ending forest road at night. And this girl that I made friends with, her and I were just like, we got to power through this. And we turned on music and we were like trying to make ourselves run, but we just were so tired. We got kind of delirious and silly. It was actually really fun, but we were trying to run, and this guy that we quote unquote ran by, after several miles, her and I were like, okay, we're just gonna like fast walk now. And he came walking past us, so our running was not efficient.
Yeah, mine was like that too. I saw my pacers were walking, and I was running, and I'm like, oh man.
I did that too. It was so funny. Like, somebody made a video and it looks like I'm running, and then they zoom out and my friend is walking next to me.
Yeah.
But it was like I couldn't walk.
Yeah, I looked at my splits at the end, coming off of Eldon to running into Flagstaff to the finish, and I felt like I was going fast, but I was like, oh, poor Courtney. Like,
oh.
she had to run like pretender on 16-minute pace or something. And I was like, oh, and then all these people are watching like a live feed, and they're probably like, hurry up and get there. Like,
I watched a live feed. It did feel like it took forever, but it wasn't. But it wasn't because on the live feed you appeared fast. I'm knowing that you were at 250 plus miles. You looked like you were moving fast. I didn't know the course, and so I just assumed that it was a lot more loops than they made it sound like. But you looked like you were moving all right. I've seen other runners that sometimes didn't only like stumble, but you looked like you were moving.
I saw Peter Mortimer, he's sprinting it in at the end. I was like, I didn't look like that. He got second, and that's his hometown, so.
Oh yeah,
he had a little more pep in there.
He had hometown advantage. Let's talk about sleep. This is clearly a distance and a time that just takes where sleeping is required, right? I mean, I think 100-miler you can sort of get away with perhaps a little cat naps or so, but how do you guys deal with so many days on feet? I mean, you need to rest. How do you calculate it now? What did you end up actually doing? Staci, why don't you start, since you had more days?
Oh yeah, I had a lot more days. So I think my first nap was like over a day and a half in, because I was going to nap at that camp. But then I like ate something and I had some coffee and I tried to lay down and I was like, I'm awake. So I kept going. But the first nap was like maybe 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then probably every 60 miles or so, I just have a little nap, but somewhere an hour and a half. But I was spending so much time messing with my feet and like rewrapping and unwrapping and taping that I kind of didn't grace myself with a lot of opportunities to sleep because I was sort of frustrated about my foot situation. My longest nap was maybe Sedona. I think I slept an hour and a half there. But what we did, we had a rental, like an expedition that we rented, and in the back it was folded down, and we just had like an air mattress on part of it. So I slept on that, just kind of sprawled out. And then a couple dirt naps, like so tired toward the end, you just lay down next to the trail for a few minutes and fall asleep.
Those are glorious.
It was.
But if you don't see any rattlesnakes, they're glorious.
It was awesome. I met a lady that is very experienced at these runs, and she told me to set your phone for 11 minutes. And she goes, that way from the time you lay down and get back up and get going, it's 15 minutes. And I was like, okay, I'll try that. So we did. We tried it out, and it was helpful. It's crazy deep sleep that you can get in that short period of time. I had no experience with this before, mm-hmm. So it was kind of awakening to realize that. Yeah.
And I guess if you set a timer, that's smart, because then you don't have to, in the back of your head, deal with the potential of panic or guilt, right? Of like, oh, what happens if I sleep too long, longer than I want to, or so, right? If you have that set, then you can say, well, I'm gonna wake up rather quicker than not. Maggie, how do you deal with sleep? You are experienced in those crazy distances.
Well, this felt new, so I'd know because like the only time, like Barkley, you don't have time to sleep, and I've not gotten far enough to really ever be that tired. So Biggs is like the only other kind of nap experience I've had during a race, and that's, at night you have maybe 13 minutes, you use whatever you want to sleep, and you do that every hour. So like it's kind of a given, but like I'm not going to nap every hour here. So like it's kind of more open, and I had no idea what to do. So, I talked to like a couple friends that have done this before and just realized like just not have a plan. And I figured I don't usually get tired the first night. Like I've never slept in 100-miler or 24 hours. So I figured by the second night I'll take a good nap, see how tired I am, and then, do the little dirt naps along the way, like on the trail. But I was really tired by the first night. So by the time I got to Jerome right before the second night, I was exhausted, and my crew's like, why don't you just actually take a nap? So I lay down for 20 minutes, and it was amazing. And Amy poked her head in and said, are you, like, it's time to get up, or you awake? I was like, I could keep sleeping. I'm like wrecked. Like, just the heat. She's like, sleep for 10 more minutes. So it turned into a 30-minute nap, and I felt amazing. And I moved really well the whole night. So I finally was like, okay, because I was pretty good against sleeping that long. I thought you could just kind of survive on these little naps. But what I learned is that eventually those little naps stop working. And so, yeah, you just have to kind of sleep, whatever. And like, I was done in 4 days or whatever. So like, I would probably have needed a bigger, longer nap at that point going into the fourth night. But I was able to survive on that 2 more 20-minute naps. And then I lost track. There was some times that I probably felt like I was laying down every hour to take like a little 2-minute nap or something. But like that was the last time I slept planned in the van. Mm-hmm. Because then I took a nap. I was exhausted and like delirious at Turkey Butte. So I finally lay down there. And I was able to start running when I left that aid station. And then I think with my pacer, Brian, at some point on those trails in Flagstaff there in the woods, I kept taking little naps. And he's like, why don't you just lay down for 20 minutes? Because none of these little naps are working, which is great advice because like, it made such a difference to just sleep for 20 minutes instead of trying to like make these 2-minute naps work. Like, so that's just something I learned from maybe next time is like, yeah, maybe it is more worth it to do like a larger chunk. You're wasting 20 minutes wasting in quotes, like, but it's probably paying off in the long term. So, and then there was a guy that was running near us, all night on the second night, named Trevor, who did also a 90-minute nap the first night. So, and he was running really well. And I think he finished just like, I think right behind me. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have it figured out, but maybe then longer naps would be, more beneficial or efficient.
Yeah. I mean, especially when we talk about the sleeping, because that's something that we all do every night. Even as runners who are not running those crazy distances, I think it is an interesting example of what we as humans are possible. Like I think 250 miles seems sort of abstract. That's something that unless you regularly do long distances, hard to really fathom. But to go so long without sleeping or with very little sleeping, to be able to disrupt our routine so much and somehow walk away from this. I mean, walking away, I mean, you'll take plenty of time to recover from it, but to realize that we as humans are are capable of something like that is fantastic, right? It's phenomenal.
It is cool. I am still tired. Are you still tired, Staci?
I'm so tired. And I went like back to work Tuesday. I skipped Monday, but it's been rough.
Yeah.
My feet are like, they look like raw chicken. They're disgusting.
Mine woke me up the other day. Like they were so dry and hurt. And so I put like that Aquaphor all over them, like Vaseline type stuff.
Are they starting to itch now? Like mine, like I woke up at night and I felt itchy, but they're painful.
Yeah.
It's so gross.
Yeah, they look pretty disgusting. Like it was like they were swollen full of moisture, and now all the moisture's been sucked out, and all like the leftover skin is just looks like alligator skin.
I've been like texting pictures of my feet to my husband to gross him out. It's payback time. Like he sent me some things, so it's his moment now.
Fantastic.
Terrible. We're terrible people. Crazy though.
Let's talk about food. Again, right? Going that many days, you need something solid. How did you experience how things go different as the race unfolds itself? I struggle hugely with once the water is warm in my bladder or in my bottles, I just don't want to drink it anymore. And so I always find this a huge challenge. Do you go with just whatever's at the aid station? How much are you prepared, Maggie? I know you are a big Tailwind user. How much did Tailwind carry you, considering that this is that many days? I mean, you need something else.
Yeah, you would think. But like my plan was not to do 80% calories from Tailwind, but honestly, I think that's what I did.
That's insane. That's absolutely amazing.
I was thinking maybe like a 50-50 kind of calorie mix and eat more at the aid stations, or even like a 66-33 mix, whatever. But I just couldn't eat. So I was like, well, I just keep doing liquids while it's hot. And then at night I would eat maybe like some mashed potatoes or cream of wheat. But like, I just couldn't do anything else. Even after like, I couldn't taste anything anymore. Like the Tailwind all tastes the same, and I never get sick of Tailwind. But like at this point, I was just like, I don't know, just drink it, whatever. And it was like warm, but I somehow survived on that and rebuild more than I had planned. I don't know, how it would have gone going into like a fourth night, but that's just how it happened. So.
Yeah. To have your body so perfectly dialed into that's amazing, though, right? Because that's always the big X factor. Then, if you have sort of a plan and then you realize nothing sits, right? You either like throw it up, or you come to an aid station, nothing sounds good. Staci, how about you? What did you do for food?
Oh well, I usually just drink water. I had a little bit of that liquid IV stuff. When I get into longer distances, I get worried about like stomach issues when I have stuff in my water. I just haven't gotten dialed in on that yet. So lots of like little bits of eating. I tried early on to make sure I was putting stuff in just to keep the pump primed. And then I got these, cause I do the whole vegan thing. So, and they did have vegan options at the aid stations, but everything felt fairly limited. And sometimes stuff just doesn't sound good. I have these shanty bars I've gotten like totally hooked on lately. I don't know if anybody else has tried them, but they're like they got a lot of plant protein in them, and they seem like they're really easy to digest. They don't have that like thick, chewy, funky taste like some of the power bar type stuff. They're easier to eat. But I was just eating like pieces of those as I went to try to keep calorie intake going. And I didn't really have any kind of stomach issues, so I was definitely grateful for that.
Well, That sounds fantastic. Especially with the heat, right? I feel like in the heat it's so much harder to eat, to have an appetite, and then to keep stuff down too, right? Here, one more question. Poles. I know I saw you, Maggie. You use poles. Did you tell me a bit about your pole strategy, and then both of you. I don't know, Stacy, if you use poles at all.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I'm just used to them from Barkley training, and I know they really save your legs, and so I knew I was going to use them early just to save them and help on the climb, and I'm glad I did because it was sandy. And so that helped with traction a little bit. And then even on like some of the rockier descents, it helped me like kind of just launch myself farther than just like tiptoeing. So I'm glad I had them. There's a couple of times I ditched them, which is nice because it was just like runnable. But I mean, that's just because I'm used to using them for Barkley training, and they definitely save your legs over the long haul.
Yeah, I used them too. I feel like also when you're getting fatigued, it kind of helps you have a rhythm and keeps you moving. You can kind of change it up, but I definitely found it an advantage with all the up and down, especially like some of it felt like you're in a waterfall bed. It was just like rocky garbage. So I was grateful.
Yeah, they're helpful. They helped me feel more secure against snakes too.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Oh my God, did you see the scorpions, Maggie?
Oh, no, I didn't see any scorpions.
Oh, wow. I saw a whole bunch of them at night, like before Sedona or in that section somewhere.
Oh.
Yeah, it was cool. I got some pictures of them. It was kind of exciting because I've never seen them.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
They don't move. They just sit there. Yeah, it was.
Did you see them at night with your headlamp?
Yeah, I just saw them. They weren't all that big. They were maybe an inch long or so. A couple of them were bigger, but they were blackish color, and they were on the rocks just hanging out. But
I saw like beetle things. They were like big black beetles, but maybe they were scorpions. But maybe they had beetles too.
Yeah, I saw beetles too, and then some of them had like red bodies and black heads. They were
we
all
saw
these
like
funky.
a weird bug like that.
Yeah, I saw lots of animals.
I saw 5. Oh, we saw pronghorn in the field, that long cow pasture. Across. We saw pronghorn, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's rare to see them there because they're more prevalent in like Wyoming, I think.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I saw a mountain lion the first night.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I heard someone else saw a mountain lion.
Oh my gosh, I was running actually.
That's insane.
And the little reflector things hanging from the trees.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one and I was like, oh, that's really weird. They put another one like just past it. And I'm getting closer to it and I'm like, that's got 2 reflectors and then like a greenish color.
Yeah.
And then I got up close to it and it was like staring at my headlamp. And I mean, we looked at each other and then it took off into the bushes, but it didn't make a sound. Like, when it took off, it was silent. And after that, I started walking fast instead of running. Like, I still had energy because it was the first night, but I didn't want to run at that point. And I was like singing.
Was that before Camp Kippa that you saw?
Yeah.
I knew it. I swear I saw mountain lion prints there, like big cat prints. And you just feel like eerie there because you're going down and up these like hills and you feel so remote. I was like, there's got to be mountain lions here. It's insane. That was crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it was just in my mind, I'm like, why is there a second reflector just past that one? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's got 2 dots. Yeah, it took a minute. And I mean, I think like my headlamp, I think it was fascinated, just like, what is that? Mm-hmm. So we had this moment and then it took off and I mean, it wasn't scared. It just was like done.
It's probably like, this is usually a peaceful area. What is all these people doing here?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was this crazy cyclops looking at me with this eyeball.
Cyclops. That's amazing.
It was crazy. Yeah, and then somebody at the aid station said that someone else had seen the cat, but it had 2 cubs. And I was like, I didn't see any cubs. I guess I'm really glad about that, because that could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
But everybody lived, as far as I know, so that's good.
As far as I know, everyone's accounted for.
I think so. I haven't heard the final count, but...
So we are recording this very, very shortly after the race, and we can hear in your voices how raw everything is, the experience. If you summarize something like that for you, is there a philosophical takeaway? Is there something that you feel like this was just another item on your ultra sign up list to on to the next race, or is that something that's gonna stick with you longer? Who wants to go first? Yeah.
I just think anyone who finished the races is like a pretty amazing accomplishment, because like, you know, we ran the race first. So, you know, we have all these crazy stories. Maybe next year they're going to, you know, Jamil was mentioning something about they're going to maybe haul in water for that climb, but we got to experience this, like everyone running out of water, and just like, you know, it probably won't be as like raw as it is this year. You know, there'll just be more support where we need it, I think. And anything that takes you multiple days to finish, where it's just going nonstop, I feel like it's just like a journey. It's like, it's more than a race. Like, I don't know. I feel like anyone who finished the races just should get as much, you know, fanfare as the first person to finish the race. It's just like, it's hard, and it took forever to get there, no matter how long it took you.
Incredible. Staci, how about you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm super impressed with you fasty people. It's amazing and it blows my mind. But I was just wanted to finish. It was so exciting to get to that point and to finish. I didn't even know how it would feel. And, you know, my friends, they were all waiting at the base of the trail where it came into Flagstaff, and we actually like ran in together. They got me to run to the finish, which was silly. But it was the most amazing feeling, you know, and I hugged on to my friend Phyllis, and I just like fell apart right there, because it was like just the conclusion of all of this just ended right there. But, you know, there's a lot of like time in your head out there. There's a lot of soul searching and, you know, just looking inside yourself. And then also you meet like the most amazing people, and they just fall into place at the right time, it feels like, you know, and I feel like everybody out there kind of sharpens each other. Like, I don't know, there's trail angels. It was just really cool. Definitely life-changing in its own way. Yeah, it was awesome.
It's got to be like a journey for the crews and the pacers too. They're just as tired and trying to get their runner to the finish. So I think it's just it's got to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's definitely something where the entire team sort of gets that experience as well, right? Mm-hmm. For sure. Maggie, Staci, thank you so very much. I absolutely enjoyed stepping back and let you two just share your experience with me, with each other, and with our listeners. Thanks for coming onto the show. Maggie, as always, thank you so much. Staci, first time. I hope that our Olympia friends will enjoy this episode. Yes, thank you. Congratulations one more time to successfully completing the inaugural Cocodona 250. And well, now you get to take care of your feet. I guess that's where we leave it at. So now it's all about foot care. Thanks again, Maggie and Staci, for this incredible interview. It was absolutely a delight having you on the show. I hope you, dear listeners, are equally thrilled hearing their story as I was recording it, and sort of just stepping back and listening in. This week's episode, again, was brought to you by My Medic, first aid kits for people who want to stay alive. Save 20% off your order with coupon code SingleTrack. Go to mymedic.com. And Jack Wolfskin, the new outdoor brand here in the US that is going to turn heads, us.jackwolfskin.com. Links to all of these awesome products and to Cocodona and to these badass ladies will be in the show notes. See you next week.